The Pirates lost 8-2 after a 3-hour rain delay, and the team continues to strike out at an insane clip. For a team that doesn't hit home runs, we'll talk about this today on Locked On Pirates.
You are Locked On Pirates, your daily Pittsburgh Pirates podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Welcome to Locked On Pirates. I'm Gary Morgan. Today, I'm going to read some of your comments from yesterday's third segment, and we'll talk through them a little bit. Last night's game, of course, and a bit about the weekend series against the Phillies. So, 16 strikeouts last night. 16. Yes, against a great pitcher in Framber Valdez. But still, if you aren't a team that swings for the fences, you simply can't strike out 16 times. The Pirates have struck out 556 times, sixth worst in baseball. And when you pair that with their 43 home runs, 29th in baseball, you have an offense that just doesn't work. For instance, the Yankees, well, they strike out a ton too, 533 to be exact, which is ninth worst in baseball. But they rank second in home runs with 98. So who in their right mind cares, right? San Diego Padres have 427 Ks, fewest in baseball, and they've only hit 54 home runs, which ranks 25th. Yet their offense works. I wonder why. The point is, you can't marry these two stats. You can't be bad at Ks and home runs because home runs are what make the Ks acceptable. This isn't about talent. It's of course about talent, but it's also about approach. Far too often teams ride the wave of MLB doesn't care about Ks anymore, and they forget the other part of the equation, which is you have to have them as a result of hunting power. Not just because you can't make contact. Mitch Keller didn't have his best stuff last night, and Framber Valdez pretty much did. In many ways, scoring 2 runs off him the way he was going was actually pretty good work. And somehow Jared Triolo saw the hell out of Framber Valdez last night. He racked up 3 hits while the rest of the lineup was mystified by his curveball and two-seam. Triolo almost always suffers from ground ballitis. And here he was against the premier ground ball pitcher in the league, hitting the ball into the outfield with some authority. Go figure. It's almost like he maybe heard me talking about replacing Brian Hayes with him and decided to show off a little bit. It was good to see anybody, come up with a stretch of hits, especially against a pitcher like that. Odd performance, though. I think one thing we've learned so far this year is when the Pirates face left-handed pitching, I don't necessarily care for their right-handed lineup all that much. It inevitably gets you playing the scrubs again, and it inevitably gets you reaching a little bit too deep into your bench. For a team like this, they just don't have that kind of option, if you ask me. That said, what do? Throw a bunch of lefties out there against Valdez? Well, his numbers say that lefties are hitting a little bit better. So maybe that is something that you have to consider. Maybe that is something you have to think about. Maybe you should think about putting lefties in against lefties a little bit more. Maybe we should start believing some of these stats that are starting to emerge where left-handed hitters are doing a little better against some of these premier lefties because they're getting so used to not facing them, they're not really game planning against them all that much anymore. It's something to keep an eye on, at least. I mean, O'Neal Cruz kind of gets neutralized to a degree whenever you start a lefty against the Pirates. And this is not a lineup that can afford that. They're leaving him in the leadoff role, which makes a lot of sense because he could still get a walk and still do some damage that way on the base paths. But he's certainly not nearly as threatening at the plate against left-handed pitching. Never really has been. Doesn't mean he can't get a hit. Doesn't mean that he can't do something positive. We've even seen him homer off guys, but it's not as easy as sitting him and thinking that the lineup's going to get better. It's not. They're not forced to use Frazier anymore now to cover second base against a lefty, so they're able to bring in a guy like Nick Gonzalez, who, it's hard to judge him too much for his couple games that he's had back, because I don't honestly think that he got all the way ready in the minors before the call-up happened. So I'm a little confused about that. Still, we started talking a little bit yesterday about this Canario versus Pham thing, and I have reached out to some people to kind of find out, is there something going on with Canario that, maybe like an unreported nagging thing that we should not report to the injury report, but it is going on and it is something to keep an eye on as to why he's not playing and Pham is. I got very little back. I think the best thing I can probably tell you is that, and this is probably going to change some people's impression of Don Kelly, but he thinks to win games, there are nights when Tommy Pham is his best option out there. They love his defense. They really do. I'm not 100% sure that I agree. I know the numbers back them up on that. When I watch it, I just don't see like this earth-changing defense. I don't. I see a competent defender, but it's not like he's got like an absolute gun for an arm. It's not like he's got world-class range. It's not like he gets a good jump on balls in. And I do think that he cuts off a lot of singles. I also think it kind of, helped turn a single into a double last night when he tried to come in and make a catch and it dropped too fast for him and got past him, and O'Neill Cruz backed him up and kept the leadoff hitter at second, and ultimately Mitch Keller kept him from scoring. But I don't think that it helps all the time the way they think, and I also just again don't see the upside there, and maybe there's some part of this equation that I'm missing. I like to think that I hate just supposing that stupidity leads to questionable decisions, because there's usually something that I don't know that can't make sense of it. And the only thing that makes any sense to me is that Canario is kind of fighting through something, or maybe it's a little bit of what we talked about yesterday, where they're trying to get more power out of him, so they're working on his swing in the background to see if they can't come out the gates with a little bit of a different approach and see if they can't take advantage of a little bit of that skill set that he brings to the table. That's the only thing I can really think of. Yesterday, we took a nice walk around the diamond and we kind of talked about where we really felt like we could replace talent with. Like, as we walked around, I think we kind of came to the determination that there's really only a few spots where it's wide open and this team really could and should and will go out and upgrade, because it certainly isn't everywhere. It's not like you can just randomly bring in guys not caring about where they play and assume it's a better player. They do have some things they want to try at certain places. So you guys had a lot of great comments about them. And in the next segment, I want to spend some time reading some of them, because I honestly think they're pretty great. Whether you're gearing up for back-to-back meetings, shuttling kids back and forth to activities, or tackling an endless to-do list, your morning sets the tone for it all. That's why it should start with the perfect cup of coffee, crafted just for you. Enter Trade. Trade is the #1 coffee destination in the U.S., delivering fresh, incredible coffee from over 50 of the country's top roasters. Whether you're a cold brew fan or a pour-over purist, they've got the roast you'll love. I just got my latest pack, Flatlander Signature Blend. And if you're a guy who uses flavored creamer in your coffee like I tend to, take my word for it. You want a cup of this stuff black first. So good and crisp, you'll love it on its own. I don't even walk down the coffee aisle at my store anymore. Right now, Trade is exclusively offering for our customers 50% off your 1-month trial at drinktrade.com/lockedonmlb. That's trade.com/lockedonmlb for 50% off your 1-month trial. Give it a shot. You won't regret it. All right, welcome back to Locked On Pirates. So again, yesterday we talked a lot about walking around this diamond and seeing really where we felt there were holes. I mean, I personally land on moving on from Ke'Bryan Hayes, and if you listen to my other show, the Pirates Fan Forum, I talked about that quite a bit on there last night. You can go check that out on YouTube anywhere. Not to drive you away from this channel, but let's start with some of the comments here. Wilbert Matthews, always a good comment from Wilbert on just about everything I do. But it says, Gary, the only power upgrade positions are left field and third base. It's hard to add WAR in the middle infield. DH is set. Get some high RBI guys at left and third. How do you add RBI at second and short? Those aren't power positions. Some great Pirates teams had light hitting middle infields. And that's true, Wilbert, but I do think the game has changed. You know, I think you can get away with having light hitters here and there for defensive purposes, but I don't think today's game tolerates it all that well, because second base, this goes all the way back to the 90s, had kind of become more of a power position. It was a place where you hid somebody that probably didn't have an arm to play on the left side of the infield, but they've been an infielder most of their career. Shorter guys tend to go to second base. Guys with a little more power tend to go to second base because they don't need the range and the mobility that comes with being slimmed down like a shortstop tends to. And we've seen most real good teams, they tend to have a shortstop that can hit some home runs, you know? I'm not saying that everybody's got a Francisco Lindor, but the really good teams certainly have someone like him, right? Who can hit for power or he can hit for average. But in general, shortstop is no longer like a place where you hide a Jordy Mercer. Or, second base certainly is not a place where you hide a Chico Leand anymore. If you were to go back to those 90s teams and reconfigure them, you probably put Jay Bell at second because, he can provide a little bit more pop there. And then you get yourself a water bug shortstop, or you probably try to find some offense. I think things have changed in the game a little bit from that conception. And I guess for me, I don't necessarily care where you have the positions that don't have the pop, so long as you have some positions that have pop. And when I look at it, I just don't see a way to get around that. Let's go to Rob R here. He says left field, third base, shortstop, second base are positions where he thinks you could really add. IKF and Gonzalez position versatility probably makes looking for upgrades easier. I do like the idea of short-term IKF extension. Yeah, so I proposed an IKF extension a little bit. And a lot of this is based on the panic that I personally have about the shortstop free agent market. I don't like it. I don't think there's a lot. And I'm not 100% on anything coming up here. In fact, I think as much as I talked about replacing Ke'Bryan Hayes with Jared Triolo and calling it a glove 1-for-1, the way that I look at this team right now, I think you're probably looking at Jared Triolo being your best glove at shortstop. And I could see this team going that route to stopgap fill it after IKF moves on. I don't know about re-signing IKF. I think it's something that they should pursue, but his comments that he made a little bit earlier in the season made me feel like he wasn't exactly enjoying his stay. And I know he's kind of corrected some of those things and probably purposely come out and give it a different statement that would lead you to feel a different thing. It's worth pursuing, if only because this isn't a guy that's going to get paid 10 million somewhere. And if you could even just convince him to come back for the same rate of pay that he makes now, like 7.5, 8 million, you could do a lot worse. He's at least hitting for average, which I think there's certainly a place for. I just talked about all these strikeouts. Well, here's one of the only guys who just doesn't do it nearly as often. And it's an influence that it's hard for me to just want to give away. I do think his defense is inferior, though, at shortstop. But you might have to bite the bullet and kind of realize that's the best we can get right now. How about Nathan Osler, who loves Brian Hayes? He's a player I'm sadly becoming more willing to move. His bat just sadly can't play anymore. This team, like you said, needs some more pop. And that's the problem. You want it. Or that's the position you want it. Another team like the Yankees, who has enough bats, would definitely bat him 8th or 9th just for the glove alone. I could see that. I mean, and the Yankees probably feel like, in a way, they lost the World Series, or at least a crack at winning the World Series, by playing poor defense in their infield. Jazz Chisholm is playing third base, but DJ LeMahieu is the starter at second. He's been really bad, and he's always injured. In fact, it would be surprising if he was even available come playoff time. So I could certainly see the Yankees as being a potential partner in a deal for Hayes. That really would help shore up their defense. They could move Jazz back to second. And if they really felt like he wasn't hitting enough, or DJ LeMahieu catches on, so what? They sit him on the bench. They sub him in the 8th inning for defensive purposes. They won't care about that costing $7 million. And I think there's a lot more teams like that out there than fans tend to believe. Let's talk about Aaron Z's comment here. Love Hayes, but in my opinion, the team needs power at first base or third base. He'd rather see Horwitz go and get a top-tier first baseman than keep Hayes, because Hayes' glove. Would be awesome if Hayes could go to second base, then upgrade both along with a corner outfield power piece. You can live with Hayes' lack of bat if he had pieces around him. Well, yeah, that's kind of the point. I don't see them putting the pieces around him necessarily, because there isn't a lot of positional places to do so. I don't understand wanting to move him to second base, Aaron. I don't. It would seem to me that they've got a lot of options at second base, and I don't know why I would take a premier glove out of a premier defensive position and put him at a not premier position. Nobody cares where power comes from as long as it comes, right? Putting him at second base doesn't do anything for me. I mean, he's a third baseman and a great one, the best one. So I'm not moving his position. I don't think that fixes anything about my power needs. Even what you say here about, like, the team needs power at first and third. Oh, they do, but moving Hayes isn't going to help you get that. Like, moving Hayes to second base isn't going to help you do that. And as far as Horwitz goes, here's a guy who's already proven he can hit over 15 home runs in this league. I can't see wanting to let him go over Hayes either. So I guess I'm a little confused by that one, Aaron, but you can certainly clarify if you'd like. Dennis Cunningham comes in with third base as a whole. No one's expecting greatness from Hayes anymore. He's a bucket of cold water for the campfire. Piguero would provide the same offense and add speed. Maybe Nick York's arm is strong enough now to play third. IKF would be best suited at the position, but his time is nearly up. Well, I mean, technically speaking, his time is not nearly up. They have control of him for quite some time. Piguero is a guy that the Pirates have now tried at shortstop, third, first, and they just recently put him out in the outfield. There's a reason that he has not stuck up here, and there's a reason that they don't play him up here, and it's got a lot more to do with his glove than it does his bat. And at shortstop in particular, he's been really, really shaky. And I think there's some concern there, at least as far as like infield defense, as to what you're going to actually get. You can take a step back defensively for a little bit more offense at third base. I don't think you want to take a step that far back. That's just me. I'm not saying that Peggy's not an option at all. I just don't see it on the surface here. When we come back, let's talk a little bit about what they do when Joey Bart's healthy, because it looks like that's coming up, and a little bit about this Phillies series that we're about to start tonight, if the rain allows it. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game, before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. If all of you know what's going to happen before it happens, like you seem to think a baseball manager should, then get your butt over to FanDuel and turn your $5 bet into a $200 bonus. New to FanDuel? It's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com, place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, welcome back to Locked On Pirates. So the interesting thing coming up here is Joey Bart, and it should be very soon. All accounts are that, for the most part, he's healed up. He's still in the protocol for concussion. It's a 7-day stint when you go on that IL, and that's a minimum of 7 days. So you can't come right back off of it, but he should be very close. It could be this weekend. He's already been working out. They're not going to send Joey Bart to the minors, okay? And you're not going to miraculously come up with a trade for Joey Bart, in a weekend where you make room. Andy Rodriguez just came back up here. Andy Rodriguez has, one really nice hit, a double. I do want to say I've talked an awful lot about how good I think Henry is defensively. I think Andy was really good the other night handling Mike Burrows and Braxton Ashcraft. I thought he was very good defensively. We haven't really seen him uncork as many throws as we've seen Henry uncork, but he's pretty good. I don't know that he's ready to go back down. I would like to see him get more consistent at bats than he is. I think there is, for instance, I think there was an opportunity last night to use Andy as the first baseman, and they chose to use Jared Triolo. And who am I to argue? Jared Triolo got those 3 hits, right? So obviously Don Kelly was right. But if you're just talking about getting at bats for these catchers and you think there's a way that you can have all 3 of them, well, the first thing that would have to happen is the Pirates would need to start recognizing Andy as the right-handed platoon option at first base. We don't have that right now. Right now, they see that as Jared Triolo. Right now, that's what they're using. So if you keep Andy up here and you keep this 3-man mix of catchers up here, well, That's step one. You're going to have to realize that Endy needs to at least be the platoon at first base. He's going to need to get a start or two at catcher a week. So that would be, 3, maybe 4 games a week for Endy? Would that be enough to wet your whistle and keep you interested? Would that be enough for a youngster to continue to progress at this level? I don't know. I'm asking you. I personally think it's probably a situation where Endy and or Davis need to go down, but I just don't think it's going to be Davis right now. Paul Skeens is enamored with his catching skills. He went as far as to publicly call him his personal catcher in one of those bullpen sideshow things they do on Pittsburgh Sportsnet. So I just don't think that they're going to do that to Paul Skeens. And I also don't think Paul hates throwing to Endy. I just think there is a drop off there as far as preparation goes, and that is imperative to Paul. He loves that aspect of things. He even talked about how he doesn't necessarily always agree with what Henry types into the pitch comm, but he has learned to trust it over his own impression of what should be thrown. I don't know that you replace that. I don't know that you do that to Paul Skeens. If he likes it that much, that he trusts his catcher to see things he's not seeing and he's openly calling it out, that's as far as you're ever going to get towards a player like him, straight out calling out what should happen with the roster. He's telling you he wants Henry. I don't know that that's best for Henry either. I mean, the hitting was nice for a couple days there. Unfortunately, it's got the look of a mirage right now. That said, Framber Valdez is a good player. It's so difficult to call out guys for not getting hits against somebody like that. But Henry's definitely got some steps to take still. I personally still feel consistent playing time is the best way to get it. Here's how I'd handle it. I would say Joey Bart right now is my backup catcher. So mentally, put yourself in a place where you don't care if Joey Bart gets 1 or 2 starts a week. That's enough. If you want to throw him some bones at DH and get Kutch off his feet, have at it. I think that sort of situation where Joey Bart would get 2 or 3 starts a week in some form or fashion is good enough. Let Henry Davis take the lion's share of the catching duty, and then let Endy have 1 start a week behind the dish and fill in against left-handed pitching at first base. Maybe give him the odd start against even a righty and sit Horowitz. Or get Endy back in the outfield. It's something that he has done before. It's something that he probably could do again. I think you'd probably have to go with right field if you did so, which would move Reynolds over to left, which probably isn't the best configuration for this lineup. But if you want to keep all 3 of them, you're going to have to get creative. And I'm not sure any of the 3 deserve to go down to the minors. If you want an argument for why one should go down, it's probably the young pitching coming. But even that is hard for me to argue because Abraham Gutierrez is probably better than Endy as a receiver. And I don't know that I think you're upgrading necessarily by sending him down. You just be building familiarity for the future. So we'll see what they do at that position when they decide. They're using Endy like someone that they are probably going to ship right back out. I'll say that right now. They're not using him like somebody that they think is competing for playing time up here or going to continue to get it. So I'm interested to see how it plays out. This Phillies series is going to be really tough. First, the Phillies pitch crazy good. They've got 2 real good lefties going against the Pirates, and I just said how bad I think they are against lefties. That's certainly a narrative shift from where they've been, and it shouldn't be that way because the Pirates don't have a ton of left-handed slug either. It shouldn't be that way. They just have seemed, even the right-handers have seemed to hit better off of right-handers. So I think this is a tough series to expect the Pirates to win, but I do think that um, we've seen stranger things. We've got all-world super greatest pitcher ever, Bailey Falter going. Andrew Heaney's going in this one. Paul Skeens. We'll get back into it at the end. So there's certainly options, but I feel bad for Paul Skeens because I'm sitting here right now and I'm looking at Paul Skeens versus Christopher Sanchez, and I'm thinking to myself, well, there's another one where Paul's not going to get any run support, right? Because Christopher Sanchez is one of the better pitchers in the game. If you want to get to the Phillies tonight, might be one of your best options. I think you have a good shot of getting to them tonight. But the only reason I say that is because I honestly think that out of all their pitchers, their weakest one is probably Joe Ross, and he's going tonight. So it's his first start since July 30th of 2024. So, I mean, like, if you're going to get anything going, this is the guy, and you got Bailey Falter going. So I guess tonight is probably the one that you should win. And the other two, you just hope you can manage to get one. Ranger Suarez versus Andrew Heaney in game 2, Christopher Sanchez versus Paul Skeens in game 3. That's going to be tough. Kyle Schwarber continues to just crush baseballs. He's been awesome. Brian Reynolds has been pretty good. Last couple games haven't been great, but he's still swinging the bat well. For the Phils, it's hard to even call anybody out for being bad. Max Kepler's not been great, but he's not great. Brian Hayes remains cold, and I don't know. We'll see what happens. It's a series that I personally don't expect a lot of good to come from, but the Phillies are a World Series contender legitimately. So measuring stick time for Don Kelly, because this is a step up even from the Phillies or the Padres. I mean, this is probably, and you can't count Atlanta. Atlanta has not played like one of those top tier teams either, despite what their roster looks like. The Phillies are a more complete team than anybody that Don Kelly has managed against yet. I'm interested to see how it plays out. Again, I think tonight's the best chance for a win. And if you get that, it's always a roll of the dice to see if you can win the series after you win the first game. So let's get started with a good one tonight, and hopefully the rain holds out and they can get this one in. But hey, that's all I got. Let's have a great weekend, everybody, watching the Buccos. We're going to come back strong on Monday and have another good week of talk. And thank you all for the participation. It's been incredible. I honestly, I thank you all, and people that have reached out to me on social media about the show and how it's kind of progressed since I took over. I appreciate all the comments and all the thoughts, and the show is for you. I know it sounds funny, and people say things like that a lot, and it comes across as not genuine, but I really mean it. The show's for you. I'm trying to entertain and inform you. So if I'm not entertaining and informing you, well, tell me different ways to go about it. Tell me different things you need to hear about that I'm not covering, and I'll make sure that I work them in, because the customer's always right, unless you're not. And the ones that know they're not, well, I don't reply to your comments. So that's all I got, everybody. Let's go Bucks.